My name is Daniel Daze. Thanks for joining us. And now, police in the northern region have arrested 8 persons in relation to the Tripoli violence. A number of locally manufactured arms have also been seized. This is according to the spokesperson of the Regional Police Command, DSP Yusuf Tanko. Now, you recall violence erupted in Tripoli over the weekend, displacing many and leaving property damaged. 2 persons have also been confirmed dead at Tripoli in the northeast region. DSP Tanko explains measures adopted so far have worked to restore peace in the area. We will go straight now to Martina Bugri, who is a woman on the ground. Martina, what's the latest? The police say peace has been restored. Is that what we're seeing on the ground?
What I'm gathering is 2 communities have been burnt today, Chichanso and Nadoni, which was the first community where the conflict actually started, has been burnt again after they rebuilt the place and moved in. I'm told also that Samandu was attacked, but that community survived. A lot of properties have been burnt and food items have also been burnt. People have had to move out of the area. I'm told that what they normally would do, they'll start firing from afar, entering into the community. And so the women and children would have to run away, leaving the men to do the fighting back. And so that's what happened this morning. And as we speak, Chichanso and Naduni are burnt this morning.
Now, Martina, has the police spoken, or have the police spoken after this?
The police spoke earlier this morning. They said they had beefed up security. They have put in some strategies, and it was working. But it looks as if they probably will have to re-strategize, because anytime they come out with information, the contrary happens.
Right. How are the people there faring? Have we seen any of the women who have had to flee the areas?
I spoke to one of the displaced. He says that he's moving to Saboba itself to live with a family. Initially, it started with Chiriponi and then Saboba, but now it's extending to Junjo, and people from the 2 tribes are worried that if something is not done to end it, it probably could spread to other communities where the 2 tribes exist, and that would be deadly for the area.
Now, Martina, we are picking information that a community near Saboba, as you name, is under attack now. Is that the case?
That is the Samandu community that I mentioned.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much, Martina Bugri, for joining us. Now, at the University of Ghana Medical School at Kolebu, workers are threatening to stop all teaching and learning over a directive by the National Council for Tertiary Education over the payment of their overtime allowances. The Teachers and Education Workers Union TEU and the Federation of University Senior Staff Association of Ghana FUSAG say NCTE in a letter to the universities has advised against the continued payment of their hospital night overtime as well as travel and transport allowances termed as category 2 and 3 stipends. But Chairman of FUSAG, Haruna Rafik, says the NCTE is being unfair. Ifwa Evans-Chinwe reports.
According to a letter issued by the National Council for Tertiary Education last month, senior staff of some public universities shall not be eligible for overtime allowances since they assign responsibilities to subordinates. The statement has angered TEU and FUSAG members who claim they are assigned the same responsibilities as junior staff and must be paid for working overtime. They are threatening to stop work if government fails to address their grievances. Haruna Rafiq speaks for them.
You know, how we do overtime, it is not that the staff involved decides on his or her own accord to come and do overtime. You are actually requested to come and do the overtime. Our staff have worked for February, which is supposed to be paid in March. But as we speak, that hasn't been paid. That hasn't been paid. It is outstanding. And we have sent a clear signal to them that at the end of this month, if we do not get that overtime paid for those who were actually asked to come and do overtime, the campus wouldn't be very conducive for all of us to be in here. So that is the letter that has come from NCT, and this is the response from unionized staff, that's TEU and FUSAG. We are coming from Kolebu You may ask why Kolebu, but because you know the medical school is in Kolebu, and all the staff there, like we keep saying, the clinical departments in Kolebu are all headed by senior members who are appointed by this university. And these people do not work in isolation, they work with staff. And so when we advise ourselves and we decide to withdraw our staff, it's going to affect a lot of, because Department of Surgery, Department of Medicine, Obs and Gynae, Child Health, all these clinical departments, in fact, the dental clinic, we have our staff there. We man these areas. And when we decide that we are no longer going to render our services, I think it wouldn't be so good. So management, and for that matter, NCTE, should re-look at this issue and then address it properly so that we don't get to that point. We don't also want to get there, but we think that if people have worked, they should be paid adequately compensated for. That's our problem.
He added NCT must pay attention to the issues and motivate them to discharge their duties effectively and creditably.
Away from that subject, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, has hinted that though Ghana is performing well with its Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, recent issues with militialism and open defecation are setbacks that prevent it from meeting its targets. Economic specialist with the UNDP's Kojo Sedega tells Love News that Ghana's issues with party militias project a negative image in face of her growing governance strides. He has been assessing Ghana's performance with the SDGs with Love News on the sidelines of a day's forum with editors in Kumasi.
But we're still lagging behind as far as sanitation is concerned. We still have open defecation, people throw rubbish around, and so our cities are dirty, and our waste disposal is a big challenge. We're still having challenges in those areas. Governance areas, we are normally noted that we are the beacon of hope for Africa as far as democracy is concerned. We are trying as much as possible to do that and be having fair elections. But one can also point out that we're having a little tension recently through issues of if you like, vigilante and those on, which is also a bad image for Ghana. But I think we are getting somewhere where the two political parties are trying to see how best they resolve that issue. On issues of Goal 8, where we're talking about economic growth and employment, we are having challenges, even though economy is growing, but employment is still a challenge, where a vast majority of youth are still unemployed. Those that are employed too are largely underemployed, and that is one area that we need to look at very well as we implement all other goals. We see how best the goals lead to employment of our people.
Still on party militias, the ruling New Patriotic Party has officially written to the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, inviting it to begin dialogue on the disbanding of party militia groups. It's been 26 days since President Akufo-Addo directed the two to meet and dialogue to determine ways to put an end to the menace. The president late last week directed the Attorney General to begin work to disband party militias without prejudice to the meeting of the two parties. Let me read to you excerpts of this letter coming from the NPP, and it begins by saying, on behalf of the NPP, I am pleased to officially invite you, that is the NDC, to a meeting to discuss the menace of political vigilantism, which has gained notoriety in the country, and explore ways of permanently disbanding the various vigilante groups associated with Ghana's two major political parties. So that's the main purpose that the meeting will have. It goes on to say this invitation has been necessitated not only by the president's call during the 2019 State of the Nation's address, but also by legitimate concerns expressed by overwhelming Ghanaians about this menace and the need for the two political parties to do the needful in the interest of the nation. It says here, you would recall that since the president made this call, our national chairman, Honorable Fredibly, has been engaging your good self. And this letter is addressed to the national chairman of the NDC, Samuel Ofosu Ampofo. So it says that Honorable Fredibly has been engaging Mr. Ofosu Ampofo in telephone conversations on the subject. We think that time is now ripe for the parties to hold this crucial meeting, which the whole nation has been looking forward to. It says, we've also taken notice of your concern or your request to expand the scope of the engagements to include multiple stakeholders and wish to assure you that the NPP avails itself for this consideration at the meeting, which will afford the two parties the opportunity to agree on the various stakeholders to be invited in the subsequent engagements. The NPP proposes that this crucial meeting comes up during this week at a venue convenient to you, and so we entreat you to, as soon as possible, get in touch with the party when you find a suitable venue for the meeting. Thank you, and it's signed by the General Secretary of the NPP, John Bwedu. Right, so as we know there, this letter was sent on Monday. It's the information that we have. And we are expecting this meeting to take place this week. Related to this subject, Executive Secretary to the Emil Short Commission of Inquiry into the election violence at La Baoleche, Ernest Kofi Abochi, has justified the Commission's use of the word militia to describe security groups associated with political parties. Now, Joy News has come under heavy criticism for describing political party security details as militias instead of vigilantes, as the public popularly refers to them. NPP organizer Sami Oku recently condemned Joy News' documentary Militia in the Heart of the Nation, which unmasked the Eye, an NPP-affiliated militia group which had been operating from the Christiansborg Castle in Osu. But speaking on PM Express with Evans Mensa last night, Mr. Abochi explained that evidence presented to the Commission best describes the political party security details as malicious.
Prediction and appropriate concepts. And I think in this particular regard, I support the Commission's stance.
You do?
I do support it. Now, let's face it, a vigilante has a certain definition. A vigilante plays a complementary role. A vigilante has a responsibility to come in, takes upon the responsibility of coming in when the mainstream, when the authorized body fails. So a vigilante plays the role of filling in the gap. Let's analyze what Ghana has, or the scenario we have. The party vigilantes don't purport to wait for the police to fail for them to come in. These are entities and these are bodies that literally challenge the police.
True.
I mean, you see the police go, you see them sometimes struggling with the police for space as far as ensuring security in, say, by-elections or elections are concerned. And therefore, using this concept of vigilante, in my opinion, appears a misnomer. Now look at militia. A militia may appear to be a heightened concept, but it still embraces these groups. Now the way it embraces them is this. A militia is supposed to fundamentally have a paramilitary or a quasi-military characteristic in terms of how it does its things. So one thing is discipline, and discipline in quotes in terms of training. The other thing is a certain structure and hierarchy. The other thing is, the claim to having a certain, if you like, military leadership, and that they listen to a certain chain of command. Mm-hmm. All these features may or may not be present, but you may have one, two, or more present. Yeah. And so the reality is that there's a certain evolution, even if they're not there yet in many ways, even if some of them, are not there yet, there's a certain evolution to move away from the current status, i.e. playing just vigilante, to the position of military or quasi-military or paramilitary. Because the truth of the matter is that these groups are increasingly recognizing that there's a competition. Now, in competition, the concept that could be used appropriately here is what is called the race to the bottom, which in this case could be the race to the top. And the race to the top could be an amassing of weapons to challenge each other, because there's a certain recognition that there's going to come a point in time where one will have to outdo the other. And if you don't outdo each other in how mature you are and how big your guys are, you have to outdo each other in what kind of weapons you're holding. And if you don't outdo each other in that, you have to outdo each other in how sophisticated you guys are as an organized military force. The reality is that the Commission recognized, having listened to some evidence at that point. Don't forget, the Commission didn't say this from day one. True. The Commission has sat for a few days and was beginning to see a certain picture and was beginning to see from the evidence that was given before the Commission a certain trend developing. And that's why the Commission said, let's use the appropriate language.
Still live on Joy News today, we move on the subjects of political party militias, and a driver and his mate who engaged in a brawl with a police officer have been remanded for 2 weeks by a Weija Circuit Court. Francis Boating, the driver, and his mate, Albert Ansah, who were captured in the viral video, pleaded not guilty to the 4 counts leveled against them. They are due to reappear in court on April 1, 2019. Joy News' Henry Kwesi Bedu sat through court proceedings in Weija Court and now reports.
This video has gone viral since Friday, 15th March 2019. The two, Francis Boabing, driver, 26, and his mate, Albert Ansah, 33, have been charged with conspiracy to commit crime, assault on public officer, causing unlawful damage, and causing road obstruction. They pleaded not guilty to all the 4 charges leveled against them. But as soon as the Weija Circuit Court judge, Bernard Bentel, remanded them for 2 weeks, they burst into tears. Brother of the driver, Justice Yao Ando, says his brother will have his day in court and tell his side of the story.
Andra, anopano, ana me papa flame, no catch them say Martin Yaba. I'm my junior brother. No.
I heard the news yesterday. My father informed me, but I couldn't get to the police station because it was a Sunday. When I heard he was apprehended for beating up a police officer, I was shocked. My only brother will tell his side of the story. He is so calm, and I think there is more to the viral video.
Me expect sir, and I mean me brother no that way, but me who say yes, Annie, it's life, and you know, we joining a man.
The public relations officer of the Greater Accra Regional Police Command, DSP Efia Tenge, says the police will continue to investigate the incident, adding the complainant, Constable Julius Mauli Epe, will also be interrogated.
The police officer was even being called to also answer questions on the said assaults that were reported on him. So this is how we get in the pockets of information regarding what really happened. So if we are getting some counter reports, then it means that we need to do due diligence and reports to be able to do further investigations on it to get what really happened. I also do not know why turn back to a police station will just warrant this kind of beating. So that one will also mean that we also need to do our work well. If a police officer stops you and asks that for this kind of motor traffic offense that you have caused, you need to return back to the station, I don't see why that should warrant this kind of assault on the officer. So it means that the investigator in this case must also do a good work for us to all understand.
The accused persons will be kept at the Odoko police station until they reappear before court on April 1, 2019. Henry Kwesi Bedu's report for Joy News.
To a different subject now. And last year, Joy News aired a story about the lack of potable water for residents of some communities dotted along the Volta River. Though the island communities were surrounded by water, residents consume that water at their own risk. Much of the water is contaminated through fishing, salt mining, and other human activities. Here are excerpts of the report filed in March 2018 by Martha Quentelacqua.
On our way to Afleve, the island community that doesn't have potable water, even though it is surrounded by water. Now we are going to check how they have been able to manage so far, how the water they have has transformed their lives, even though their fishing activities and other livelihoods have been affected by what they used to do. So very soon we'll get to Afleve and then we'll find out how the new water system the people on that island has changed their lives.
From Adafo to Sugakope, there are many island communities dotted along the Volta River. These communities are surrounded by water, yet, fact is, they consume that water at their own risk. Much of the water is contaminated through fishing, salt mining, and other human activities. Today, I am taking a trip to one of the communities, Aflive, to find out how they feel living in the midst of plenty and yet have none.
we just arrived at Aflive, and we are going to take a look at the potable water system. Aish. Clean water system provided by Easy Water for everyone. So our brothers and sisters here can also get good water to drink. Come along with me.
It makes a lot of sense to think surrounded by water means you lack none. But some women in Aflive tell me the cost they paid when they used to drink from the Volta River was high.
The previous one, we've been drinking from the natural river. There are deaths, we've seen them. But with this purified one, we see that there is a great change.
Today, they are certain the mechanized water treatment has saved them and their families from frequent visits to the hospital.
Those days, our children, when they go to school, the teachers call us, the children are having acute stomach pain or chronic stomach pain, or they are vomiting up and down every day. There are problems in the school with the school children. Since this device was installed, such calls have not come again. Teachers don't call us to tell us our children are in pain or they are sick at school anymore. And we, the parents as well, we don't buy pure water like we used to buy those days.
Assembly member for Aflive Azakba Alokbem electoral area explains they have now studied the pattern and noticed the tides increase the salt content of the river every 2 weeks.
It's tasty.
So
it's salty, yeah.
The salt in it comes all the way.
Yes, the salt in it, whenever it's high time, the salt on it. Yeah. So you can taste it, put it into your mouth, you can see. And also you can, when you see the surface of the river, you see the river tends to be some colors. When it's coming, you see there's some colors, the water has mixed with the salt sea. So you can see it by seeing it on the river and also tasting it when you put it into our mouth.
We stay with this story because World Water Day, which falls on 22nd March every year, is about focusing attention on the importance of water. This year's theme, Leaving No One Behind, adapts the central promise of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Well, 1 year on, what has changed? The medical superintendent of the Ada East District Hospital and representative of Easy Water have been telling us that potable water has now reached 7 island communities.
Last year, when the story was done, we only had 5 sites in the island communities, and the island communities are surrounded by the Volta River, where all these communities have access to water, which is the fresh water from the Volta River, but then it's not wholesome and clean for drinking. Currently, we have 9 sites. We also have 4 underway, which should be completed by the ending of April 2019. So we'd say we've made some progress. The reason for doing that is to make sure that children, especially under age 5, are free from diarrhea diseases and from kidney diseases. And these are all related to water. And I would say with the health aspect, I'll pass on to Dr. Nab to deal with that.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to ask you, there were lots of reports of diarrhea back then as a result of this water problem. Has that improved?
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, it has improved. What we are doing now is still collecting data. Actually, before we had these machines, we were having a lot of these diarrhea diseases. So now that they have the machine that purifies the water that they are drinking, we are also gathering data. Although we haven't completed the research fully, but with the few data that we've collected, we've seen that the incidence of diarrhea cases are going down, and it is helping. So like Harrison said, now that we are having more machines, the number of people who are now drinking from the treated water has increased, and it's helping them. So the health impact on the people there, it is positive. It's
wonderful. I'm sure it's also had an impact on how you deliver healthcare in the community.
Yes, definitely. You know, those times when we used to have a lot of these cases, they do come to the facilities. We need to buy drugs and other things. But now, like I say, as the incidence is going down, our workload, I must say, is going down. And the most important thing is that the health of the people, especially the children. You know, one thing that initially we didn't recognize, that Adan, where those islands are the lower water basin, and it is heavily polluted. So with now this research and education and having this machine to purify the water, we have seen mass improvement.
We stay in the Volta region because these people's Akple and Fetridechi, their Kente and Beat and Bobobo dance are just some of the things that come to mind when you talk about the Ewe people. But when you meet a number 9, as they're popularly called, it's their tongue-twisting names that gets everyone's attention. A name like Ewe Ninye, meaning God have mercy upon me. That's a mouthful. Joy News' Selinam Ampo tells us why Ewe names always carry a God factor in them.
An Ewe friend of mine is called "It is in the hands of God." That's a whole sentence, but it's a sentence which the Ewes would simply summarize as Ele Mausi. They are known for their rich names, which always have interesting meanings and are full of praise to God. Temi de Maunu Amejeko, a shopkeeper, tells us what her name means and the circumstances surrounding her birth.
My Ewe name is Temi de Maunu. It means draw us closer to God. I learned I was a prophetic child, but before my birth, my father was quite a flirt, and he loves these Accra, big women and so on. So when the prophet visited that time and inquired of my mother, so as my mother came, she conceived me. And when she gave birth to me, they said, this is Temi de Maunu. I'm supposed to draw them from all evil, behaviors, attitude, and whatever.
Ewes gave their children names that recognize the God factor before the advent of Christianity. They acknowledged the presence of a supreme being in their lives and referred to that force as Mau Sogbolisa. Social linguistics lecturer Evashed Amuzu explains how they apply it to their names.
Mau existed long before Christianity. So we always had a concept that there's Mau Sogbolisa. We have Mau names, Mauena, Mau Lolo, Mau No, and so on. All of these are, as I said before, the opportunity that the name givers have to praise God, to show the appreciation, and to signal one form or the other what they think God has done for them. Sir, for example, is another name for God. Mau is the one we talk about most of the time. Sir is the fuller version of Sir is Dogbasa, the God of destiny. And always regard Mau as more or less also a God of destiny. So that's Sena, Serufia, Sedem. They were there long before Christianity.
Often, Ewes get teased with their names, which are usually heavy on the tongue. Names like Buchomekpo, Mokpokpo, and Chwekeo are just a few. To prevent any slips or fumbling when pronouncing their names, some Ewes translate their names into English.
It's also true that pronunciation of Ewe names may pose a problem to other people who do not speak Ewe. So some parents may decide that the concept that they will want to express in Ewe, they will rather express it in English to reach out to more of that transmitted way. When I asked my father, he says that when I was born, he felt that God has always protected him, and my birth again shows that that is the case. So in Ewe, it means vovolimavo, everlasting shelter, vovolimavo, which he then translates into English as Evershed. So I happen to be the first to have that name.
For non-Ewes, maybe they may have to eat a morsel of akple and okro to provide some fluidity on their tongues, just so they can mention these names without any struggle. But for the most part, other names praise God, and they have very beautiful meanings behind them. Selinam Ampos report for Joy News.
So that's the solution. If you think the name is a tongue twister, loosen your tongue with some akple and fetri. Away from that story, though, the Governing Council of the University of Education, Winneba, says the cost of the damage caused to the property during the protest by students is 250,000 Ghana cedis. This was after an assessment done by engineers.